For 500 years, Western global power has been built on one single rule: the ability to sail ships to any coastline on Earth and project force. That era is officially dead. It is hitting a brick wall right now, and the rules of the game have just been rewritten. The United States Navy is still the most powerful naval force ever assembled, boasting 11 aircraft carriers and a massive global network of bases. But almost nobody is talking about the real story unfolding behind the scenes. The truth is, the American military wasn't checkmated by a bigger, better Navy. They are being checkmated by cheap missiles hiding in the dirt. Welcome to the briefing. Today we are looking at the new era of fortress coastlines. We are going to explain why the age of the untouchable aircraft carrier is coming to an end, and why this shift directly threatens your cost of living. Let's break it down. First, we need to look at geography, because in naval combat, geography is destiny. Look at the Strait of Hormuz. It is one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. At its narrowest point, it is only about 21 miles wide. Every single day, 20 million barrels of oil pass through this narrow gap. That is roughly 1/5 of the entire world's daily oil supply. It is the single most important oil choke point in the global economy. If this artery clogs, the world economy suffers a stroke. But here is the detail most people miss. That narrow body of water sits directly beside Iran. Iran does not need a massive navy to control this environment. They do not need billion-dollar aircraft carriers or fleets of destroyers. Instead, they have spent decades building a layered coastal defense system. They have hidden mobile anti-ship missiles, land-based radar, fast attack boats, sea mines and drones all along their coastline and deep inside their mountains. From Iran's perspective, this is the perfect strategy. They know it is impossible to defeat the US Navy in the open ocean, so they decided not to fight that war. Instead, they fight a war of denial. In military terms, this is called anti-access and area denial. In plain English, it means you make a specific region so dangerous and so heavily saturated with missiles that an enemy navy simply cannot survive inside it. Large ships are highly predictable. An aircraft carrier or a massive oil tanker cannot hide in a 21-mile-wide channel. They have to move through it, and when they do, land-based missiles become lethal. Iran has heavily invested in cruise missiles with ranges up to 300 kilometers. Even more terrifying, they have ballistic anti-ship missiles. These weapons descend from high altitudes at several times the speed of sound, making them incredibly difficult to shoot down. The goal isn't just to fire at ships. The goal is to deny the ability of a superpower to even show up. Now here is where things get truly dangerous. The strategy Iran built in the Persian Gulf is just a small-scale version of what China has been developing for 20 years. China has spent decades studying how America projects power. The ultimate symbol of US dominance is the aircraft carrier strike group. But instead of trying to match the US ship for ship, China invested heavily in land-based missiles designed specifically to destroy those carriers. China built the DF-21D, which is literally known as the carrier killer. It is an anti-ship ballistic missile with a range of 1,500 kilometers. Then they built the DF-26, known as the Guam killer, which can hit targets 4,000 kilometers away. They back these missiles up with a massive network of over-the-horizon radar, drones and satellites, because a missile is only useful if you know exactly where your target is. When you combine these sensors with long-range missiles, the goal is to make the environment so deadly that American forces hesitate to enter it at all. Think about what this means for Taiwan or the South China Sea. If China creates a defensive bubble that is thousands of kilometers wide, American aircraft carriers are forced to operate much further away. Distance matters. If the carriers are pushed back, pilots have to fly longer, refuel more often, and take massive risks just to reach the battlefield. Land power is checkmating sea power. The US Navy understands this. They know the era of the big ship acting as an untouchable fortress is ending. and they are now scrambling to design smaller, dispersed naval forces and unmanned drones just to reduce their vulnerability. But there is a new layer to this crisis, and it is happening right now in 2026. We are watching a massive shift in global alliances. The very foundation of NATO is being questioned. There are serious discussions about the United States stepping back from its traditional role or even abandoning the alliance completely. For decades, NATO was the absolute backbone of Western security. If the US pulls back, the burden of keeping the oceans safe falls onto nations that are already drowning. Take Great Britain. The Royal Navy used to be the undisputed master of the seas. But in 2026, they are facing a brutal reality. Britain started this year with only 7 frigates in active service. 7. When you factor in maintenance, the actual number of ships ready to fight is even lower. They are stuck in a massive gap where their old ships are retiring before their new Type 26 and Type 31 frigates are ready to sail. This is a historic low for a country that literally defined sea power. So what happens when a global power retreats? Regional powers like Iran and China do not just sit still. They fill the vacuum, they expand their bubbles of denial, and this brings us to why this ruins your life. The entire global supply chain is built on one massive assumption that the seas are safe. If NATO fragments, European countries will be left to defend their own energy routes with rapidly shrinking fleets. If the US refuses to be the policeman of the oceans, the risk of a single land-based missile battery shutting down global trade becomes a terrifying reality. If a regional power like Iran can choke off a narrow waterway like the Persian Gulf, what happens when a vastly more powerful country like China applies that exact same strategy across the Pacific Ocean? What happens when the world's greatest navies realize they can no longer sail wherever they please? The headlines tonight will focus on explosions and political arguments in the Middle East. Do not get distracted. The real story is the silence of the massive cargo ships that are no longer willing to sail into the danger zone. We are stepping into a future where missiles on land can threaten ships thousands of kilometers away. Geography now favors the defender. The lines are being redrawn right under our noses, and once they are set, there is no going back. Keep your eyes on the choke points, because that is exactly where the New World Order is being decided. This is not just about the Middle East. This is about who owns the future of the oceans.